So I want to talk to you for a bit about our, not only our transition, but also our journey with Studer. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born and raised in Mississippi and really thought I would stay there my entire life till I went to Broad Superintendent's Academy. And Broad decided that I probably needed to venture out, and so I moved to Maryland, Prince George's County. I was deputy superintendent there. Small district, right? 18th largest in the country, over 200 schools, 118,000 children when I was there. And for some reason, I kept feeling this nagging feeling that I needed to go back to Mississippi, because if there was ever a place in this country that really needed powerful educational leadership, it's Mississippi. Not only are we a state that has some historic context that we continue to try and build from, but we're also a state that has a great deal of passionate educators who really want to do the right work for children. And if you've had the chance to look at the national news this morning, you'll see that Mississippi is #1. We were announced this morning in terms of our NAEP results for making growth, not only in 4th grade, but 8th grade. And we're excited about that because, you know, it's so hard when you're in a state and all you hear is, but you're at the bottom, you're at the bottom. For us to be climbing out of that well, and we're really doing it with strong standards, passionate educational leaders and teachers, and more than anything, strong standards and accountability system, and I believe firmly in that. So 8 years ago, and I promise you, I never thought as I entered Ocean Springs that I would tell you I would be entering my 8th year as superintendent. I really, in my heart of hearts, thought I'll do 4 and I'll be gone, but I fell in love. That's the only way I can say it. Not only did I fall in love, I fell in love hard. You know, everything about me now is blue and gray, which are our colors, and I really think that everything about me is also around the Greyhound. So our team, in terms of leadership, if you think about Ocean Springs School District, we always talk about the 3 A's, and for us, each A is equally important. So this kind of cut off, but it's academics, arts, and athletics. And we're passionate, I mean passionate, about all of those. From our athletic performances every night of the week, and I mean that literally, and our AD is in the room, so he'll know I'm telling the truth. To our artistic endeavors, where we begin that work with our children in kindergarten to make sure that they have the opportunity to not only be exposed, but also to make sure that our children have the opportunity to expose themselves and show their artistic endeavors. And then academics, and for us, academics is important across the board. Not just to be a high-performing district, but to be a district that grows every single sector of our district. And so when you think about who we are, we're also a growing district. Over the past 8 years, we've grown about 600 students. And so when you have that type of growth, it also brings about a different set of challenges. We thank community members and partners who have moved to Ocean Springs, but it has also given us a different set of challenges. And a couple of years ago, we really began to see that things like if you started with us, you had a higher opportunity in terms of being successful. But if you moved into our school district, there were some indicators that were telling us that we really needed to do a different type of work with those children. And so we're happy that this year we're 6,100 plus, but when you see how large some of our schools are, especially our high school, that's the 2nd largest in the state at 1,900 students, or a 4 through 6 building that's almost at 1,600 students, that tells you it is a different type of work in terms of just keeping everyone moving in the right direction. Everything that we do really starts and begins with leadership. These individuals are in the room, or at least I hope they are, based on last night. I'm almost scared to look. See, God. They are absolutely phenomenal leaders. They are. I'm awe-inspired by them, and I mean that very literally. Because not only do they give of themselves tirelessly every single day, they also never stop creating. And that is the thing that I think I'm most impressed about with our leadership team. The fact that even though some of us are in our 25th year and some of us are in our 5th year, the energy and the excitement is still there. And to keep getting better and to make sure that we're doing the right work for children and to take care of teachers is really the mission of this group of individuals. So we thank them, and you'll see some of their results in a little while, but I just want you to see how they look when they're not like last night. So who are we at the beginning of our 18-19 year? 18-19 for us was the beginning of our work with Studer, and I will tell you that I don't know if it was divine, but I received this pamphlet on my desk, and it said, there's a conference in San Antonio for high-performing school districts. Well, that never happens. Where I'm from, generally the conferences or the presentations or the groups are always really concerned with lower-performing school districts. And so for us, there's always this deficit gap of who actually takes care of getting the districts that are really strong, who takes care of getting us stronger. And so I was really intrigued about this work of Studer, but I had absolutely no idea who Studer was. Came to the work, or actually went to that conference in San Antonio. Ryan was doing his best salesman's pitch. He'll tell you, I wasn't buying. I'm a discerning buyer. And so I was like, yeah, I just kind of want to sit in the back and see and listen and see if this fits for us, because I'm not one of those superintendents that kind of buys everything or is actually interested in a lot of things. I really want to make sure that it's the right work and the right fit for us. So when you look at our performance in 17-18, and this is from the state report card, you'll see we're an A district. It's interesting, when I interviewed with our Board of Education in 12 when I came there, and I asked them, how is the district performing academically? They told me we were great. We were like #1. I was like, oh, okay. And how are you fiscally? Oh, we're great. We got plenty of money. Oh, okay. I should have known, right? So the first thing I found out is that second statement was not correct. We did not have plenty of money. My CFO is in the room, too. And she'll tell you that those first 2 to 3 years were really tough on us fiscally, because we really had to really dig out of a barrel. But we'll also find out along the way that we were not #1 in the state. As a matter of fact, we were around number 20. But when I would walk around the district my first year and ask individuals, they would tell me, oh, absolutely, we're #1. There's no one in the state better. Well, we believe that in our heart, but our data didn't necessarily tell us that. And so when you look at our trajectory this year at the end of 18-19, we're the #2 school district, and Dr. Tibley, who's in the room, is also the principal of the #1 high school in the state. And I think what I'm most proud of is that every single school is an A. And for us, that is huge, because it was like every year there was one school that would be a B. And so this year, every school is an A. We're proud of that work. That's the testament to our teachers. That's the testament to our parents and, of course, our students. Not only is Dr. Tibley's school an IB high school, an international baccalaureate high school that graduates more students every year, over 30 last year, but also a capstone school with advanced placement. She has over 700 students who are taking advanced placement courses. That doesn't happen when they start at 9th grade. That starts when they're in kindergarten. That starts when they are in elementary schools, being exposed to very rigorous content, but at the same time, having teachers who really care about their performance and to really master that information. So how do we, for us, how has this played out? You'll see that in 13-14, after my first year, we hit an A. We were number 18. People still thought we were #1. That's okay. And we've kind of steadily moved up. Around year 6, when I went to San Antonio, I really felt like I was out of my bag of tricks. I said, there's nothing else. I hope we can move up, but there is no really set way for me to say in terms of a strategic plan that we're headed that way. When I would walk in every single building and have conversations with principals or teachers, everyone said something different. It was clear that we were not necessarily all on the same page. What we thought is that if we kept going to work every single day and we kept doing what was right for children, that it would all just work out. Well, we know that hope is not a strategy, and so that sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out that way. So what I like to call it is a complacency creep. And this is something that I'm always, I think for high-performing districts, we're always concerned about, is how do you make sure that you don't become too relaxed? So when I've heard over the last 2 days this information about the tension and what is the right tension, especially for higher performing school districts, I think this is a very critical conversation. How do you make sure you're pulling at the same time as you're also releasing? We talk a lot about earned autonomy, and the principals will tell you they have almost complete autonomy. Sometimes they don't like it because they'll ask me a question. I'll say, well, what do you want to do? Well, tell me what to do. What do you want to do? Because they need to make sure, as the principals of their buildings, that they have complete autonomy to make those decisions, and they do. At the same time, we have to make sure that we also don't rest on our past performance. And for me, this is not about just academics. This is about everything. So our AD will tell you that last year making it to the playoffs was not good enough for me. I want us to make it past the playoffs. We need to be in the state championship. So how do we make sure we're on this path to continuous improvement across the board in all sectors of the organization? Last year, if our retention rate for teachers was 89%, how do we move that rate up? And so for our HR department, you'll see that they're very serious about the metrics there as well in terms of just making sure that we're doing the right work to keep our teachers in place. So leader skill development has been something that Studer has really helped us with. Again, I will tell you that we're in a state, I don't know about your state, where we don't have a lot of true leadership, professional development that's either coming out of the Department of Education or coming out of our professional organizations. What we see is more of compliance and complacency, and how do you make sure you've checked all of these boxes so that you don't get an audit or you stay out of trouble. Well, that does not lead you to the next level of performance. And so how do we make sure we are embedding those leadership skills in our leaders so that they're able to do the right work and make sure that everyone stays in the right seat? Employee engagement was hard, and I'm going to tell you, for me it was incredibly hard because I'm a truly competitive person. So if you tell me that this is the goal, we want to beat that goal by 5 points within the next 2 days. That's kind of the mindset, okay? So employee engagement, when you talk about picking up a rock and looking underneath, I wanted to throw the rock through the window because it was tough to really hear how some of our employees felt about us or the work. It really was tough. I discovered Brene Brown and Studer at the same time. I'm sure that was divine. The whole work around vulnerability, I'm telling you, if you're a leader and you're not following Brene, you have to, because she will help you be able to get up out of the bed in the morning and come back, especially after your EE results come back. Reward and recognition, what we found out is that it is not always about money. Sometimes, and to me, this has been the most powerful thing. When KK told me this, I was like, no. So sending thank you cards to our employees' homes, to their families, to thank their families for giving of their time for our employees to be at work has been phenomenal. Now, I don't have a good handwriting, so it's kind of like hieroglyphics. And so sometimes they'll have to come and say, now, what does this say? But that in and of itself, to go to your mailbox and to open up the mailbox and see that there is a card from the principal or from the superintendent saying, hey, I just want to thank your family for giving of your time. Because we know that when you're with us working all night on the network, that you're not at home rocking the baby. We appreciate you. And it has gone, I will tell you, a million miles for us. And parent satisfaction and student engagement. And I don't know about you, but the parents who tear us up on Facebook or Twitter are generally the folks who have a reason in their minds to complain. So our happy folks generally don't say anything. And so this was really a forum for us to say, wait a minute, board. You know, I know that you're hearing this one parent complain, but there are 2,000 parents over here that say they are incredibly happy with the service the district is providing. To really get student engagement, and our students have incredible voice in the district. I've had a student council for a number of years. Some of the cabinet members call them the big bosses because when I meet with them, I come in with a list of things that the students said that we have to respond to immediately. Because for me, and I think now for all of us, they're our consumers. And so if they're not happy with the product that we're providing, then there's an issue for us to actually address. So cabinet leaders go first. Janice has talked about this. KK has talked about this. Notice how all of us are color coordinated. I like that, right? That's the Olivia Pope in me. And our ops guy picks out the color every year, which is phenomenal to me. So this year it was turquoise. But we decided as a cabinet team and a family that we would take the first leap with Studer. And so the rounding process, the 30-90, all of that happened with cabinet. The entire cabinet, with the exception of our ops director, is here today. All of our principals are here today because we wanted to come to this convening to not only hear more about how this work will continue to impact our own leader behaviors, but also as a testament to the fact that we truly believe in this work as being part of the transformation of our school system. So we began in 2018 with working with KK and Joanne, specifically around the strategies that you've heard something about over the last 2 days. I would tell you that the executive coaching piece for me has been probably the most beneficial. I tell the story all the time that if I had KK in my life when I was a parent of a young child, I would have been a better parent because I just didn't know some of the things that KK has taught me over the years, over the last 2 years. We have not only spot rounded in our buildings as a leadership team, which was interesting because people were like, now what exactly do you want? Even though I sent the letter out to the entire district saying leadership is going to come around and spot round, they're going to ask you these 3 questions. People didn't what? Read the memo, and then we would show up and they say, my computer's been hacked because, you know, Dr. Coleman sent me an email saying she's coming around with me. My computer has been hacked because I know. It's like, well, we sent you a memo. So just continuing to have those conversations and really attempting to hardwire the system has been the work this first year for us. What was our initial reaction to the EE survey? So when I received the results of the first employee engagement survey, I was sitting in a funeral. You cannot judge me for looking at my phone during the funeral because it was a long funeral. And you know, and I'm texting KK, and I'm like crying. Everybody's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, you don't understand." And I'm texting KK like, "I cannot believe this." Especially, and for superintendents in the room, the one that really, really was a throat punch for me was that they didn't know what we were doing with the money. And I'm like, well, first of all, what money? You know, Mary and I in the back rolling pennies and y'all talking about, you don't know what we did with the money. So it's like, okay. So KK walked me through that. I didn't drive off the bridge, you know, and so the first thing that we did was, okay, well, we need an action plan around that. So we started doing things like shooting videos. After the budget committee, we shot a video. Mary and I stood up there and went through line by line. Here is how much money we had at the beginning of the year. Here is what we spent the money on. This is the ending balance. And so even after the budget committee made their recommendations, we would send it back out to the school community, just really trying to help them understand that obviously we had messed up when we assumed that they knew we were spending the money appropriately. I think for principals, the same thing happened. We were in a leadership retreat. We tried to strategically put the results in their hands at like just the right time. I don't know if it was before lunch or after lunch. And it was like you could just feel the air come out of the room. And typically what happens is that, what always happens, we go to the comments, right? And we skip past the 100 comments that say, you know, we're doing a fantastic job, to that one person who says, I don't like the shoes that you wore on Thursday. And so KK taught us about looking for trending comments and making sure that we were paying attention to the right things and also the things we could control. Because there are going to be some individuals in our organization who will never like us, who will never like the work that we're doing. And if we're to be honest, they really have some issues around just their own selves that we really can't influence. And so we have to understand that. One of the things that Studer has also really, I think, forced us to do was to have some very honest conversations with employees. And so you can't bluff us anymore. If you come in and say, you know what, I think I want out my contract. Okay. Today or tomorrow? Which one? Because what it's taught us is that you cannot allow toxic people to stay on your bus. You know, if people are not happy and they're content with not being happy, then we need to find you somewhere where you can experience happiness. And that has really come to us in a very deliberate way through our work with Studer. So we've listened and we've learned, and we have, and I think this adjective is really important, or this adverb, we've mostly valued, because not everything gets our value, what our employees have told us, because it's really important. And as we've gone through the rollout process, and we attended those rollout processes as principals did them and as department leaders would do them, I have really saw them, I've seen them grow leaps and bounds, because this entire process not only requires you to be vulnerable, but it also requires for you to have a large amount of courage. So our journey continues, and I know they get so sick of me talking about cascading communication, especially Grant, because every time he'll send me something, I'll send it back and say, it does not have the branding for the strategic driver on it. Do it again, don't I, Grant? So, yes. Also, the parent stakeholder, the student engagement, those survey results for us have been important. We're in the middle of our EE right now. Already we have surpassed the number who participated last year, and I truly believe that the reason that people are participating this year is because they saw principals and department leaders do something with it. They know now that they're going to roll it out, they're going to make action plans, and so if you have something to say, this is your opportunity to be a part of that process. So the leader action plans and the rounding and the results rollout, even at our school board level, has really influenced how we've decided to drive the district this year. This was our scorecard in 18-19. We always kind of knew that this one would be in pencil because this was our first iteration of where we thought the district needed to go, but we needed data to really validate this process. And it has grown now to something called anchor goals. The anchor goals for us are, and I want to be clear, we're not at 100%. That is the goal. But the anchor goals for us really signify where we want to be as a district, and we are measuring our progress on those goals every day. So just like Lisa talked to you about her pillars, these are pretty much our pillars. The first one being students, wanting 100% of our students to graduate either college and or career ready. And for us, we're agnostic about how that process happens, but we want to make sure that we provide the supports that it will happen. People, making sure that our positions are filled, not only with highly qualified, but also highly effective. Because for me, those, and for you, I know, those are not always synonymous. So you can have the license to be a teacher, but that does not mean that you're an excellent teacher. So making sure that you're also effective, and not just teachers, but also administrators, critically important, as well as the rest of our staff and employees. Our services for this, and you know, it's interesting when our EE and our parent and our student went out, the buildings, facilities received the highest scores. And we were all like, wow. Because we have some very new buildings, but we have some older buildings. We have some buildings that are 50 years old that our employees do an excellent job of keeping those maintained. So making sure that they're not only safe, but well-maintained and appropriate for our learners is also one of our strongest goals. Of course, in finance, making sure that all programs are appropriately funded. And that is a subjective term, because what you consider to be appropriate is not always what we can support in terms of a budget. But making sure that we can explain that to individuals has been important. So when we started to, and KK taught me this as well, sometimes as leaders, we don't always flash the flashlight in the corners. You know, we kind of dust and we keep moving. We don't necessarily look in that crevice. But when we started to really look in the corners and shine a light there, we saw that because our population and our demographic was changing, there were also some strong achievement gaps that we had to address in our district. Achievement gaps in the form of students with disabilities, achievement gaps in the form of students who may come to us from different economic sectors, and also achievement gaps with our EL, our English language learners, as well as some of our minority students. And so as our population was changing, we also knew that it meant that our strategies and our instructional practices had to change. And in certain classrooms, that was not happening. Leaders were seeing that in observations as well as evaluations. And so making sure that we were transparent with why we're doing this, for us was the biggest piece that I think we had always been missing. We would do the work, but we never really communicated why we were doing the work. We just always would say, because it's the right thing for kids. But for some individuals, they need to know more of the background of that story. So in terms of listening and then acting, Internal messaging, we do a lot of that now. I send a First Friday memo home to every staff member as well as to every parent about something this month or that month. This month is going to be No Vape November. I didn't come up with that, but I don't know about you all, but vaping is an issue. So we're doing a whole rollout in November on vaping. Last month it was on chronic absenteeism. So just trying to continue to inform our parents about the work and why we're doing this work, but at the same time as our staff members. Focusing on student engagement for us is big. We are all about the fan experience, so we're excited to hear any new strategies because for us, our students are our consumers, and making sure that they are happy with the product for us is important. And then increasing the visibility of our leaders has also been critically important. So dusty corners, we talked about nagging thoughts, what wakes me up, what wakes leaders up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Generally, I wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning. They will tell you with the dinging of the phone, but, you know, hey, turn your phone off. So, you know, nagging thoughts, how do we continue to move the district forward with less and less money? That's a nagging thought for all of us, right? We will never have endless resources, so how do we do that? How do we continue to build this sense of pride that we have as a community around our schools? And there is an enormous amount of pride at the same time as making sure that we are extending that customer experience. And so for the messaging, this is one that I guess went out on our Facebook page. Everything that we put out now is really in support of one of the drivers. So we're always trying to drive it back to our strategic plan and our drivers. So this was, we had 30 of our teachers who received a National Board scholarship, so we tied it right back to one of our drivers. One of our things that came from our parents and our students was that they wanted to hear more positive recognition, and we all want to hear that, right? Everyone wants to receive positive recognition. We told our teachers that in terms of the rollout, and when I tell you they took it to the next level, so at the end of the year, this is something I put out. We sent our surveys to our parents. One of the things they said is that they wanted to hear more positivity. And so this is a newspaper article that went out. And I love this at the bottom, that this teacher, the student said, Ms. Leonard, for some reason, knows my location. So she came over to my house, and she plopped this sign in my yard that said, Ms. Leonard is so proud of me. Now, the sign moves around, you know, but this made news because all of a sudden, wait a minute, it's not that you necessarily scored a perfect score on the exam, but just that your teacher is proud of you and you drove up and this sign was in your yard. And so that was powerful, and to me, it resonates the type of family atmosphere that we really are striving to have in our district. So our results, not only are you going to see in a second our strategic drivers, every school now has a scorecard. Every department leader has an action plan. All of those are aligned with our strategic drivers so that we're really doing the work based on this seamless transition. And so if someone wants to start something new, including me, I'm sure they want to hear that because I have a tendency to do that. If it doesn't fit in with one of the drivers, you know, we have to have a conversation about why and why are we doing this work? Why are we expending resources, time, and energy on it if this is not something that we've highlighted at the beginning of the year as a need? So these are our drivers this year. The first one is to develop leaders from the assistant principal level all the way to the central office level. And we actually defined metrics according to that. We wanted to improve our evaluation by this many points for our leaders. Supporting our system alignment, this was really important for us, not only from developing the portrait of a Greyhound graduate, all the way to making sure that fiscally we were aligned so that our resources were matching what we said our drivers would be, but also our needs. Building relationships goes right back to our demographic and making sure that the students who are coming in our buildings every day are welcomed, and we're also doing the right work for them. So closing those academic opportunity gaps through culturally responsive leadership, again, starting with leaders. So we've done everything from implicit bias training all the way to making sure that as a leadership team, we understand how biases can creep in the classrooms and how to eradicate those. Grow and sustain the educator pipeline for us has been incredibly important. I don't know about you, but not only is there a teacher shortage, there's a shortage of people who want to go into teaching. When we talk to high school students, you know why they tell us they don't want to go into teaching? Because teachers told them not to. That is a problem. because we are not protecting our profession. So from redeveloping our teacher academy to having, I think, one of the biggest benefits of this, a strong teacher wellness initiative has been really important. So teacher wellness, we have a clinic. They come to the building to give flu shots. We have chair massages last week at some schools for our teachers during their off periods. We have yoga at our schools now for our teachers. So really trying to take care of our teachers so that they can take care of the students. And also our human capital expansion. We have 2 alternate route programs that are running simultaneously, I see the red, in our district at the same time, and increasing student achievement. Each one of those drivers has not only a calendar, but a pipeline system that we work with to make sure that we're all connected. And so what's next? For us, it's a challenge of continuing to be at the top. We would like to be number 1 next year. I won't tell you we don't. I mean, we really would like to be number 1. But if that doesn't happen, but we see improvement on these metrics, we see improvement in our employee engagement, we see improvement in our parent and our student engagement scores, for me, that's just as important in terms of being number 1. We want to take care of our students, and we truly believe that we do that by taking care of the adults who serve them. Thank you for your attention today, and I want to ask my team to stand. Hopefully they're okay by now. They can stand up. Let me see. Thank y'all. They're the best in the business. Appreciate you. Thank you.